Thank you, Mr. Chair. Secretary Hegseth, yesterday Admiral Kilby testified before the committee about the importance of fielding DDG Flight 3 ships. The anti-air ballistic missile radar capabilities are chief among the reasons why. I'm sure you know that you could ask just about any of the U.S. flagged merchant vessels that have been attacked by the Houthis or the Americans who were protected by destroyers when Iran attacked Israel with its large-scale missile attack, why these ships are so important. So we don't have a complete budget request from your department yet, but the word on the street is that it's going to request 0 new destroyers. Of course, destroyers are well known as the backbone of any modern Navy fleet, and China is closing the gap between us and them, having doubled its destroyer fleet in the last 20 years. I'm also now hearing that the President plans to eliminate the frigate program outright. Yesterday, Senator Collins asked you about the absence of anything referencing destroyers in your FY26 spreadsheets that were delivered to Congress. You didn't really answer the question. Instead, you referenced a historic shipbuilding investment that is forthcoming. So just focusing on destroyers, there's really nothing historic about the 2 destroyers in the reconciliation bill. Just last year, Congress funded 3 new destroyers. We did 2 in FY24. We did 3 in FY23. So from my perspective, the reconciliation bill sets you up for an easy opportunity to increase the size of America's destroyer fleet. So I want to give you an opportunity to tell us what this committee could expect in the FY26 request pertaining to destroyers. I know you've been talking a lot about trade-offs, and in the short term, I would agree that maybe there's no immediate negative trade-offs there or negative effects of not requesting any destroyers, but in the midterm and long term, I think surely any gap in production of destroyers may come back to bite us. So I wanted to hear what your thinking is here.
Appreciate the question, sir. We are procuring destroyers, and I would contrast the previous administration's budget, last budget effectively, which procured 5 ships. This one includes 19.
I'm talking about destroyers only here.
There's a plus-up of destroyers. We are reviewing the frigate program for reasons I think this committee is well aware of. Another one of those difficult decisions that we think we're in a place where we have to make them. Again, another program that was supposed to be off the shelf and reflecting something based on an existing design that was gold-plated time and time again and pushed backwards. So that is one of the things we are reviewing. But we call it historic because it's multiples of what we had before. Not all destroyers, because you've got a lot of back-end capabilities you need to invest in to be effective in the maritime space. But it does make a historic investment.
You said plus up. When you say that, are you referencing the 2 destroyers in the reconciliation bill?
Yes, sir.
And so that would be a plus up on top of forthcoming requests for more destroyers in the FY26 budget request.
I would have to, Bren, how would you break that down?
Yes, sir. So our budget, as the Secretary said, is 1 budget, 2 bills. So the 2 destroyers he's referencing are the 2 in the reconciliation bill. Okay.
So again, does that mean that you will request additional destroyers as part of the FY26 NDAA and appropriations process, yes or no?
When we built the budget, sir, the 4-month review that the Secretary referenced, we found a requirement for 2 destroyers in FY26, so the budget only requests 2 across both bills.
Yeah, absolutely. The Navy's been planning to get 2 destroyers in FY26 and FY27. However, I think this committee, the Senate, appropriators as well, have been pretty clear that the destroyers in reconciliation were to supplement that anticipated request of 4 ships in 2 years, not supplant it. So, I suppose if that's all you're asking for, it'll be up to members of this committee in the Congress whether or not we want to exercise what we think is the right call here, which would be to grow the size of our destroyer fleet, not slow down its growth. So with that, you can take the 40 seconds if you have any other comments, or I'll yield it back.
Gentleman yields back. Chair, I recognize the gentleman from California, Mr. Cisneros.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Secretary, so many topics to cover. I represent California's 31st District, located in Southern California, where you've deployed the National Guard and Marine Combat Battalion in an effort by this administration to provoke a confrontation. God only knows for what reason. As my colleague from Tennessee mentioned, the military has been activated before by the President, but let's tell the whole story. President Johnson federalized the troops after the governor of Alabama activated them to keep black students out of the University of Alabama. President Johnson did it so the students could attend the university. He did it for the right reason. He corrected a wrong. California did not ask the president for help, and the presence of the military is an effort by this administration to intimidate and incite fear and violence amongst its citizens. You failed at ensuring basic operational security by sharing classified data over an unclassified network. This was blatant, lazy, and put service members' lives at risk. And knowing that your office is a SCIF, I hope you are not bringing in your devices, your personal cell phone, or even your work phone, because that's not supposed to be in there either, right, your cell phone, into your office to send these signal chat texts. Your blatant lack of basic OPSEC would have gotten you forced you to resign from any other administration. You're requiring 8% cuts across all services, not to save the taxpayers money, but to fund President Trump's pet projects. You talk about quality of life for our service members, but yet you take $1 billion away from the Army that was meant to improve their barracks and their living. You said that money waste, but we don't know that yet because we haven't seen a budget. If the president has projects he wants funding for, you need to come before this body and provide reasoning, not just shift money around. Right now, you are stealing from our service members, robbing Peter to pay Paul. Now you have repeatedly said that you will judge every individual on their merit. Is that true?
Unlike the previous administration,
You will
yes,
judge
we are focusing
simple yes
on,
or no.
for our service
Judge everybody
members, how
on their
good they
merit.
are at their job, yes.
But yet you are separating thousands of service members who are performing and doing their job at a high level. They are being separated not based on merit. You know, some of them have been recommended for early promotion and have gotten awards and are doing a great job, but you are separating for no other reason, and frankly, I think you just don't like them. And you are classifying many of them as a national security threat, which is simply not true. You asked the Secretary of the Navy to change the name of the ship, because Harvey Milk didn't meet your definition of warrior ethos. If a Korean War veteran and a Navy diver who gave his life for standing up for his beliefs doesn't meet your definition, I don't know what will. You keep talking about recruiting, but let's face the facts here, right? Recruiting started improving before President Trump even came into office, and the reason that changed was because of the investment that was put into recruiting. Now, I was at the Pentagon at the time, and I know how much we invested in it, and I know how much of the services. And when you take away that investment, you're going to get exactly what happened in President Trump's first administration. In 2019, we had the same recruiting crisis that, back in 2019 when he was president the first time. You continue to attack diversity, but I have always said diversity is about creating opportunity. And I have seen plenty of individuals, many of them enlisted members, who, when given the opportunity, have succeeded not because of their sex, not because of color, not because of their sexual identity, but because of their worth ethic and merit. Mr. Secretary, when using your definition of DEI, I think there's only one individual at the Pentagon right now who got his job based on that merit, and that is you, and you got it because of sucking up your boss. And with that, I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Chair.
Senator Murphy, you're up.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Secretary, for being here today. I wanted to build on some of the questions that Senator Schatz was asking, just to try to build a fact predicate for some of the tough spending decisions we're going to have to make here. Just to confirm, I heard you say, with respect to the gift of the plane from Qatar, that we do not yet have a signed MOU with the government of Qatar. Is that right?
Correct. We're in the process of working through that.
And did you also say we don't have a signed contract with the company that is going to do the work? Or did you say that we have a contract, you're just not willing to disclose the terms?
The terms should not be disclosed of anything related to an aircraft of this type.
So in 2018, when the contract was signed with Boeing to do the upgrades or the new contracts for Air Force One, the terms of that contract were disclosed. They were made public. In fact, it was the Trump administration that issued a press release giving the total as $3.9 billion. Are you saying this time around, even after you sign the contract, you're not going to make public any of the terms of the contract?
I wasn't involved in that previous administration decision, but we're happy to take a look.
The Air Force testified before the House that that contract would likely deliver the new Air Force Ones by the 2028 timeframe. It doesn't stand to reason that you will be able to retrofit the plane from Qatar much sooner than 2028. So I'm trying to understand what the gap is that we're trying to fill. If this contract ends up being $500 million and the gap only ends up being 6 months, that doesn't sound like a wise investment for this committee to make.
Senator, I would defer to the expertise of the Air Force as far as timing of modifications and when that would happen, but there's also been delay after delay after delay on the Boeing side, so I don't know that's a firm fixed date yet, unfortunately, can be counted on.
So obviously the underlying question here is what is going to happen to the plane at the end of Trump's presidency. The president said on May 12th that this plane would be transferred to his presidential library at the end of his term. Is that your understanding of what is going to happen to this plane?
The president said that. That's my understanding, although I would look at what comes out in the MOU.
But why would we ask the American taxpayer to spend upwards of $1 billion on a plane that would then only be used for a handful of months and then transferred directly to the president? That doesn't sound like a wise use of taxpayer dollars.
A lot of the capabilities, as you know, Senator, of that particular platform are and should remain classified. So there are reasons why you might modify, even for a short period of time, an aircraft to ensure the safety and security of the President of the United States.
But when do you believe that those upgrades would be made? How long would the president have it before it got transferred to his personal possession?
That would be a determination of the Air Force that would take hold of it and make those modifications within whatever time window they believe gets it to the place where it need to be.
Yeah, I think this is extraordinary, Mr. Chairman. We're talking about a pretty massive investment of appropriations dollars into a plane that the Secretary is saying is currently planned to be transferred personally to the President. There's a lot of other pending needs that we need to fund. This would seem to be low on the list. Mr. Secretary, one final question. Obviously, you know that there is a concern in the public about a double standard that is applied to protest, sometimes protest that turns violent. The president, when he came into office, issued pardons to the individuals that attacked the United States Capitol, including those individuals who beat savagely police officers. You have deployed the National Guard and readied Marines in a way that many people think is unnecessary given the state and the local resources. So maybe let me ask the question this way so that you can assuage people's concerns that there is a double standard. The National Guard was deployed here on January 6th, and that was a decision made by the Department of Defense. Do you support that decision? Do you believe that that was the right decision to deploy the National Guard to defend the Capitol on January 6th?
All I know is it's the right decision to be deploying the National Guard in Los Angeles to defend ICE agents who deserve to be defended in the execution of their jobs.
But I think it's important to know whether you think it was also important to have the National Guard defending the United States Capitol when there were violent protesters here on the president's behalf, to make sure that folks know that you care about protest, whether it's against the president or on behalf of the president.
Senator, I was in the Washington, D.C. National Guard when that happened and was initially ordered to go guard the inauguration of Joe Biden. But because of the politicization of the Biden administration, my orders were revoked. And ultimately, because of the politics that were being played inside the Defense Department by the previous administration.
But do you support the
so-
decision made on January 6th to send the National Guard here to defend
I
the
support the
Capitol?
decision that President Trump made and requesting the National Guard that was denied.
So you do not.
President Trump
you do not support the
requested
decision.
support
You do not
for the
just
National
support the
Guard
decision
in
to
advance
send the National
and was
Guard here
denied.
to defend the Capitol. I think that speaks to the worry that many Americans have that there is a double standard, that you are not willing to defend against attacks made on our democracy by supporters of the president, but you are willing to deploy the National Guard to protect against protesters who are criticizing the president. That's not how our taxpayer dollars are supposed to work. They're supposed to be used to defend the United States, no matter the nature of the political affiliation of the protesters. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.